everybody. So we got the Queen Amidala Kit reveal today, a little bit earlier. It's 7:20 p.m. right now. I think it dropped sometime around like 2:15, 3 p.m. And it looks super cool, right? But here's the thing. I know a lot of people are covering this, and there's bigger people talking about this. And if you want to listen to somebody read to you and tell you what each and every one of her abilities does, great. Go there right now. That's not what we're here for. Something else really interesting happened today, too, with this kit reveal. We were led to believe, and we were told that there were going to be two marquee characters that were going to accompany Queen Amidala. And as of today, we were told who those two characters were. Now, originally, the front runners were Captain Panaka, because he is somebody who was a big part of the Phantom Menace, and he's been a glaring omission from the game. And the other front runner was a Padawan Obi-Wan. As of today, we're finding out that we're actually getting Master Qui-Gon Jinn and Padawan Obi-Wan. Where's Panaka? No idea. Is he coming later in the year? No idea. But there's something really interesting about these two characters coming to the game. It represents one first and one really rare occasion. So the first thing is, with Master Qui-Gon, this is the first time we're seeing a characterization, or I should say an assumed characterization, and our assumed characterization is because it is the Phantom Menace content. But it's the first time we're seeing a characterization for a character we already have in the game, right? Yes, we have like 5 Han Solos and we have, 70 billion Chewbacca's out there, but each and every depiction of a cloned character is from a different part of the Star Wars universe, or a different movie, or a in the case of like Stormtrooper Han and Raid Han, very fundamentally different parts of the same movie, right? So again, as an example, we have Raid Han, who is the stereotypical smuggler Han Solo, and then we have Stormtrooper Han, completely dressed in different garb, from much further on when our characters in New Hope are on the Death Star. This is also a much earlier time in the game where, CG was trying to grapple with bringing in really cool characters, but also saving really cool characters for later. In this instance, we have Qui-Gon, who doesn't really ever have a character arc in The Phantom Menace and never really sees growth as a character in The Phantom Menace, but we have now two characterizations of what is essentially the same exact character, right? The Qui-Gon that we have currently in the game came very early on. It was either a release character or a very early release, and when you got a rework, we got an Omicron that kind of emulates the Duel of the Fates, where if Qui-Gon Jinn dies, all of the Jedi around him, or all the Galactic Republic Jedi around him, gain bonuses and get much stronger. Now we're getting another Qui-Gon Jinn who's supposed to accompany Padme, or Quadme, or Queen Amidala, or whatever you want to call her, and there's no growth in the character. So this is the first time we're seeing that, and that is notable. The other thing is that with Padawan Obi-Wan, this is, again, not the first time, but a very rare occasion where we're seeing a character who has a higher tier available to them get a lower tier at a later date, right? There's really only 2 instances of this happening throughout the game currently. The first is Chewpio, who is a Marquis, whereas C-3PO and Chewbacca are both Journey characters. And the second one is Ben Solo, where we already have Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, right? And Ben Solo is a Conquest character. That one I don't personally count, because even though it is the same character, we're talking about completely separate characterizations, whereas I wouldn't really consider Darth Vader and Anakin to be the same character in terms of what we're talking about in the game. Regardless, it is there. Why are these two things really important? Well, this kind of leaves the door open to some characters that a lot of people didn't think or didn't expect would ever come to the holotables. Yes, there were some people who were saying, oh yeah, I really wish so-and-so were in the game, or blah, blah, blah. And then there was a much bigger force saying, well, we already have this, or we already have the stronger version of this, so it's very unlikely that we get that. So there are 4 characters that I've isolated today that I think that we, just by getting this kit reveal, see a much, much, much larger chance of seeing in the future, just by sheer fact of Master Qui-Gon and Padawan Obi-Wan coming through. So, ignoring the kit reveal because I just don't care, we have Yoda, right? The only Yodas that we have in the game are Hoda, Hermit Yoda from, the original trilogy, and then we have Grandmaster Yoda, who is a much earlier characterization that came into the game very, very early on as either the first or the second journey, and it kind of resembles the prequel trilogy Yoda. But this paves the way to say, hey, you know what? We could do a much stronger version. And honestly, Yoda kind of lends himself to being a galactic legend at some point. We just kind of cancel it out as being impossible based on what we already have. The second one is an interesting one, Darth Tyrannus, right? So we have Count Dooku, who is a Sith, and that is his non-Sith name. Darth Tyrannus is his Sith name, obviously, but there's never been a distinction or a difference in characterization in his arc throughout the movies. We do have his light side version that we could do at a much, much, much later date, but that was always on the table because Dooku is a marquee character, and doing a light side would be a completely different characterization. Darth Tyrannus would be very similar to the Dooku that we have now, but would be named differently. And again, up until today, was largely something that people generally thought to be an impossibility. The third one is an interesting one because this one has been around for a very long time. So General Grievous, right? This is somebody who we do have in the game, who is, I don't really know what his characterization is. He's not really a marquee character. He's not really a journey character, but he does have a very difficult or a special way to go about getting him. So he's kind of somewhere in between there. But other than, he has a cape, or, he doesn't have a cape, there isn't really a big difference between the characters. So this is somebody that a lot of people have said there's a possibility of him being a separatist GL. Again, Tyrannus could do the same thing. Neither of them really presents themselves as a force that lasts very long in the galaxy, but they are both forces that are very very strong and very popular throughout that time in the Star Wars media. So this is something that I could see happening. But now the most important one, Rebel pilot Luke, right? We've been teased Red 5 for a very long time. Meathead loves to tease the player base with Red 5 propaganda in the hyperlinks, in the titles, in his dev posts. I'm not saying that it was impossible that we'd get Red 5 before, but I am saying that it would be very unlikely that we would see a Rebel pilot Luke up until today, because we already have a marquee version of Luke, we already have a journey version of Luke, we already have a Journey Continues version of Luke, who I largely think is more on the epic confrontation, but that's really, I guess, not up to debate. And we have a GL version of Luke. Okay, so going all the way back to a Rebel pilot version of Luke, who obviously wasn't a galactic legend at that time, and more than likely wouldn't be stronger than like a Commander Luke Skywalker. People have been wondering, hey, who would lead Red 5 based on what we have in the game and based on what was feasible to bring to the game. As of today, I say it is far, far, far more likely that we see this Luke coming, maybe not this year, but sometime in the near future. So, as I mentioned, go somewhere else, read that kit reveal. It, as far as I know, is very exciting. People on our Discord are blowing up and talking about it, and they're loving some of the things that they're coming up with for the team that they think that she's gonna be a part of, or at least those last 2 slots that she'll bring to that team. But this, I think, is really the more important news, right? We knew that we were getting Quad May, but knowing that we were gonna get a first today is largely far more interesting. With that said,